moment. But before that, let's go ahead and share the PowerPoint with you. So this is a session on accessibility. Okay, so I'm from the Office of Instructional Technology, and Kate is with the Assistive Technology Office, and she'll introduce herself in a moment. And here's the things that we'd like to cover. Right, but instead of me displaying my PowerPoint for you by sharing my screen, I realize we probably all have different setups here. Some of us are looking at a single screen. Some of us have an extra screen or two attached to our devices. So if you have multiple screens, then you might want to keep the PowerPoint open on one screen, Brightspace open on another screen, and our Meet open on another screen. If you don't have three, then yeah, I understand. Yeah, but most people certainly don't have three, but you can toggle between maybe one or two screens. And so what I'm going to do is I'm in PowerPoint Online. This is only in the online version of PowerPoint. It's kind of funny. Most of the best features in Microsoft Office are on the desktop versions, but this one is specifically on the online version. When I click on Slideshow, one of the many options here is Present Live, and by default, it's only people in our organization, but I don't know if everybody's signed on with their AACPS account, so I'm going to switch that to anyone, and now I'm going to click Present Live. And I think I have transcripts turned on or captions turned on, so once I get to the slides, it'll show that on my screen. But this gives you some other kind of accessibility advantages here. So I'm going to copy this link, and we'll go ahead and paste that in the chat window. All right, and I'm also going to paste it into another tab in the browser so I can join us. And I'll show you, just in case you haven't clicked on here, I'll show you what this looks like from the student view. So I have on the right-hand side, I have the same screen as the presenter is showing, but on the right-hand side I have running captions. It's a transcript. However, it's in English right now. Well, that's great for students who either prefer reading or are deaf or hard of hearing. But I can choose from, there's over 50 different languages in here now. Okay, so each individual student can choose near point on their device to see everything that's being said in the language of their choice. So with PowerPoint, I can switch to showing everything in Spanish in my closed captioning, but I get to show one on my screen. By sharing the presentation with PowerPoint Live, everybody gets to choose what they'd like to see it in. And if you don't need to see that transcript, you can hide that pane and watch things full screen. But there you go. You have that going on the side. And then when I return back to my teacher screen and I click on Show Slides, you can see my closed captioning is running at the bottom in English because I didn't change it to anything else. And now I'm going to actually scroll through all of the slides. I'll jump all the way to the end, and then I'll come back to the beginning again, because what happens is you can scroll through as far as I've gotten. So if I'm on slide 5, you can rewind to slides 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then come back to slide 5 with me at any point. But since I'm going to get distracted showing you other things, I know I'm not going to keep clicking to move on to the next slide. So I'm going to give you all access to all of them right now. Right, so I am going to move this over. Actually, I'm going to have to temporarily escape, move this over to another screen, then I'll start it again, resume the session. All right. Okay, then I'll come back to Brightspace. And so the first thing that you will see inside of that PowerPoint is our table of contents. We're going to look at fonts and colors. We're going to look at the kind of expansion box inside of Brightspace and linking and embedding, and we'll cover those two together because linking, embedding, and using the expansion box kind of go together well. Then we're going to hand it over to Katie to show us the read and write features within Brightspace. And honestly, that's all we'll have time for. We do have more on the schedule, just in case things go faster than we expect. We might be able to touch on universal design for learning, so multiple ways to present to students the content, multiple ways for them to respond back to us. Might touch on immersive reader. So read and write is built into Google Chrome, as well as I'm using Edge right now, so it's also in Edge. Immersive reader, on the other hand, is a Microsoft invention, but it's in things like Nearpod as well. So they've kind of given the code to some other organizations to use. Actually, anybody wants to use it can use it for free. So we probably won't get time to look at that, as well as just the concept of course organization. I'll try and hit on that as we go through other items. So here we are inside of my Brightspace, and just to show you what we're talking about when we say fonts and colors, let me just bring this over real quick. This is something I wish my pastor understood. My 10-year-old leaned over to me this Sunday and said, "Why would you use white text on a yellow background?" So this is what we're talking about, how things are hard to see when you combine the wrong colors in the foreground and background. So your text is the foreground, everything else is the background. And that's pretty straightforward when you have a solid color. But where you tend to run into issues is you've got a scene on your screen. So instead of plain colors or solid colors, you're like, oh, I'm going to make my slides look more engaging, and I'll put a picture on there. And then you throw a text box on top of the picture, and this side is dark and this side is light, and your text goes over both of them. So with slides, that's where you kind of run into issues. All right, but there's 3 other places we're going to look for this, and that's in the content section of Brightspace, in announcements, and in the course banner, and we'll kind of do those in the opposite order. So we'll start with a simple one, course banner. I made this course banner inside of PowerPoint, and I was able to just add content to it, same way you add content to any slide. So I had text boxes, and I turned them here. And you can see that it's much clearer that the text that Brightspace allows me to put in here than that same text kind of in the background here. But the real key here is the text is always white. If I were to click through all of my other courses here, you'll see all of them, the text in the foreground is white. So as you make your banners and adjust your banners throughout the school year, if you decide to do that, just make sure it's dark, at least on the left bottom corner where your text is going to be. All right, so we want a high contrast. And when I come in here to change the image, I want to choose something that's dark down in that corner. If I'm going to change the banner text, notice there's nowhere in here that tells me what color would you like this to be. It's going to be white. Okay, I can change what it says. It's going to be white. So that's just for your banner here. Announcements, one of the differences between where you can chat, so your activity feed, and your announcements is the chat doesn't have a whole lot of options for formatting your text, right? The announcements do. If I go to create a new announcement, actually I'll just edit my existing announcement here, because the whole purpose of this announcement was to show you all the different things you can do with text inside of an announcement. So if I edit this, lots of things I can edit. Some obvious ones for accessibility are, let's make our font size larger. This is pretty small font, so I can click in here and I can choose a different font size, make it larger. Another option is the actual font. In our office, we like to make fun of Comic Sans a lot, but it is accessible. I mean, if you look at the way my A and my G are created here, that's not the way we write those. It's easier for students to show it like this. This is Comic Sans. Comic Sans has the text written the way we actually see it when we write, right? So that's a consideration, but the main one in here is the color. So I have a white background here, and if I choose a different font color, the nice thing about Brightspace is it has the WCAG, what we're worried about here is contrast ratio. So in order to be accessible, it has to be at least 4.5 to 1. So the higher the number here, the better. And I have a pretty large contrast ratio here. It's a very dark font on top of a white background. And if I wanted to see, if I stick with the black, white, gray scheme, if I slide this down to a much lighter color, you can see 1.5 to 1. This is what it's going to look like. That doesn't cut it. Okay, that's not accessible. So it's also nice it gives you a preview here, so you can see just how much it stands out. And as I pass that 4.5 point, it tells me whether I've reached that accessibility limit or not. All right, so it's 4.5 to 1 for smaller text, and then for large text, it's actually 3 to 1. So not quite as much contrast needed if the text is large enough, but I like to play it safe and hit that 4.5 no matter what I'm doing. You can try that with different colors. All right, so that is inside of your announcements. Go ahead and update that. And as is typical in Brightspace, I was just working on an announcement. I accessed it from the course homepage, but once you create an assignment from the course homepage, once you create an announcement from the course homepage, if you use any other tool to create things, when you're done, you end up back in that tool. So I am now in the announcements tool. So if I were to click on, I guess I don't have that one up here. If announcements was listed here on my nav bar, I could go to that tool that way. I do have it under, nope, I don't have it under class tools. All right, so course admin, I can get to it. So any of these other tools, so communication tool, assessment tool, if I create an assignment, if I create an announcement, if I create a discussion, right, I end up in that tool and then have to click back on my course home to see where I was in Brightspace before I started that process. So get used to that. Okay, that is just something that happens inside of Brightspace, even when you're in here building content or accessing content in a course that you are going through as a student. So you can be in here and click on something and it takes you somewhere else in Brightspace, and then when you're done with it, you're not in here anymore. You're like, oh, I'm back in that other tool. You got to go back to content to find where you were. All right, so expansion box, linking, and embedding. One of the things that we thought was really cool about Brightspace when it got here was you could embed things in here. And so who that's good for is the student that kind of has challenges finding their way back home. It's the idea of a hyperdoc, if you're not familiar with hyperdocs. It's one document, typically a Google Doc, that has links out to other things. So you want to, you have your whole lesson plan in one document, and you click to go to a Nearpod lesson and do your stuff there, and then you come back to the documents and you read some on the document, and then you click on the next thing, which might be a video to watch, and then you do that video, and that opens in a new tab, and then you come back to the document again. So it's the idea of your whole lesson plan is in one document, but you're continually clicking to leave there and then having to find your way back there. And if it's all in one document, that's not so bad. But so the idea was, oh, we can embed things right here inside of Brightspace, and students can just stay here and not open things in a new tab and just kind of stay put. Well, yes and no. So here's a couple different ways to embed with Google. Microsoft, there's only one way that actually works for embedding. I'm not sure I would say this actually works, but here I am. Here's my document, so I could scroll down here. It does open in Brightspace, but doing that so the way I did this, I went to Google Docs, I clicked share, and instead of getting a sharing link for just the URL, I got an embed code. So I had Google Doc write the embed code, and I came over here and I just pasted it. I don't know how to write code. I just pasted it into my HTML document. And this is how that shows up. Not so good. You can also add a link, and we'll show you how to do each of those in a moment after we show you what the outcomes look like. You can also embed a link. I don't need to go anywhere special in Google Docs. Same way I share Google Docs, same thing I've been doing with Google Docs for at least a year. I'm just sharing the link. And when I go to create that link, it says, hey, would you like to leave this as a link or embed it on this page? So if you choose embed, it looks better. Okay, if you let Brightspace do the code writing, it looks a lot better. Okay, so this is actually functional for students who don't have any additional needs for getting help with reading and writing, because there's no tabs here. I can't open the read-write extension here. So that's the drawback. So for some students, this is just fine. Students who have challenges navigating from place to place, good, I've got it right here. And you could conceivably put both of these in here. So for some students, you just tell them, hey, click on this one. And you could label it that way. This says embedded link to an old document just here. You could describe who's going to click here, and you could name this page by who's going to click here, right, or what it does. So click here to see the document inside of Brightspace. Click here to see the document in Google Docs, okay, because this one is just a link. And when I open this as a link, it opens in Google Docs, in the browser, in a new tab. Now I have access to my read and write tools. Okay, it's fully accessible. Everything you can do with read and write in the browser in Google Docs, I can do because I'm literally in Google Docs right there, right? Now, I got to get back to Brightspace though, so I finished with this document. Whether I close this tab or just click on Brightspace, I need to get back to Brightspace. So I'm done with that one. I'll close that one. Here I am back in Brightspace. All right, so that works well for Google Docs, but the other thing to consider is I'm on a pretty big screen right here. Chromebooks are smaller screens, and so your students are going to lose this, 25–30% of their screen to the content list, and they're going to miss, they're going to lose this part of their screen to all of this other stuff that's part of Brightspace. And at least I have text here. If these were icons, then this bar would be down even lower, and now my students would have this much of the screen to watch their videos on, to open their documents in, right? So we very quickly moved, once we saw things on a Chromebook, we moved from, oh, that's so cool, you can embed your content inside of Brightspace, to that's not really best practice. It doesn't look as cool, but we should probably be doing this, placing links in there for students to access stuff. So here's what it looks like when I go into PowerPoint. And this is the online version of PowerPoint. This does not work for the desktop. If you go to File and Share, you can get an embed code. And again, I just come in, and I don't know how to write code. Here's where you enter the code. So this was what was already in here, and then I just pasted this in. So this is what Microsoft Office wrote. It's pasted in that code, and that embeds this in here. And if you know just a little bit of code, you can go in there and change how wide it is just by changing some numbers. You'll see width equals big number, height equals big number. You can just mess around with those and adjust that a little bit pretty safely. So students can scroll through these. But I also have, and here's where we get to the expansion boxes. Here's an expansion box, and here's an expansion box. I find that this one is useful, this one is useless. Okay, so I think the slide that we have in here shows, here we go, useful, useless. Somewhere in there, I think maybe I took that slide out. I thought I had sort of a happy face with one and a sad. There it is. Happy face, sad face. This one, it gives me a larger screen, but this is still the exact same size. So no more functionality by clicking on that one. However, if I click on this one, it opens in the browser. So this is kind of like when I just showed you that Google Doc. I can go directly to Google Docs. Okay, now I can open the PowerPoints. Well, I own it, so it's editable for me right now, but I can get to all the functionality of being inside of a Word document, a Google document, a PowerPoint or slideshow. So this is embedded in here. And again, I promise I'm going to show you how to do a link and how to embed in just a moment. Remember, the second way that we embedded the Google Doc worked better. That was letting Brightspace do the code writing. We just pasted the regular share link in here. Yeah, that doesn't work with Microsoft. If you embed the link here and say, hey, Brightspace, turn this into an embedded document. Yeah, it doesn't do that in OneDrive. It does the same thing whether you choose to leave it as a web link or embed it. Either way, it just makes it a web link. So I can just click here to, again, open it in OneDrive. Okay. With a Word document, kind of same thing. I can add a web link directly. And this one, this is where I try to embed the documents, and it almost looks right, but this is supposed to be able to play the video right here in the documents, and it doesn't function that way. So I've got a picture of my documents, which is supposed to be interactive, but it's not. I mean, I can click on the links and go to places, but this is what it's supposed to do. Okay, so this is my Word document. And so this is kind of the best of both worlds. If I really wanted to have a HyperDoc sort of thing where students don't need to click here to go to the video, they can watch the video right here in the Word document. But I have the full screen. I have all the accessibility in here. Here is a Microsoft form, like it's embedded right here. They can answer the questions right here. It has the immersive reader functionality playing in here, so that this will read aloud. I can change font size, increase spacing, change background colors, break into syllables, color code parts of speech. There's like a whole suite of reading accessibility tools in here. I can show one line at a time. I've got a picture dictionary, and I can even show this in another language. And depending on the language, some of those other tools will also work there as well. So if I need to, I can go larger on here, go full screen. Okay, and so immersive reader. So we did touch on immersive reader. It's in all Microsoft products as well as Nearpod. So that's embedded right here inside the document. Here's a Sway presentation. Sways are sort of part website, part presentation tool. So it's fully functional right here inside of the document. Embed a YouTube video. As a teacher, I can record a Flipgrid short and embed that video here. And I put this in here to show, well, not everything, you can't just throw any web link in here. This is a TED Talk. Word supports certain things, but not other things for embedding. If you really want to go crazy on, I'm going to embed my entire lesson here, that is something you can do in OneNote. So you can see math teachers. You can embed your Desmos page on here. It's fully functional. Students can edit the equation and see it change on here. Same thing with GeoGebra. Again, embed the forms assessment here, Sway. But in addition, you also have Padlet and Quizlet. And instead of me just pasting a video, I can actually put an assignment in Flipgrid in here. So lots of different tools that you can embed right here. And then you would just share one link to this Word document or one link to this OneNote document into your Brightspace course. All right, so that is embedding in there. And again, if you see this icon to expand, that works great. If you see the other icon for expanding up at the top, that one's not, that really doesn't add any function to it. So not all expansion boxes are created equal. So how did I create these? Well, I'm going to click on Create New. And two options here. If you're just going for, I just want to embed a link, simplest way to do that is with web link right here. So I can paste, I don't know what this is, but it's suggesting some things. I can paste a link in here and say, this is an unknown link. And here's where I was saying you can choose to let Brightspace create the embed code. This works well for Google. The Google document that did look like it was like pretty much full size, this is how we made that one. This is a Microsoft tool, it's at SharePoint, so there's no point in even clicking that. You might as well just do it as an open tab, all right? Or open in a new tab. So that's just adding a link. The other way, where I said embed this on an HTML page, if you just want to have text, you want to add a page that just has text, HTML document, I know that's kind of scary. HTML, I don't know how to do coding, so this is just a random document with some random text. Yeah, you can just type in here. Okay, you don't need to worry about coding. You can do anything you want on this page. Lots of ways to format. You can embed things on here. Yeah, but here's the embed code. So this is where I would paste that in. So if I was in this Word document and I go File, Share, Embed, I can copy this code, or just click copy right there. Again, here's where you can mess with the sizes. Come in here and paste that. Click OK. This one works better in Microsoft than it does in Google, whereas the other way of embedding works better in Google than it does in Microsoft. So I made this kind of small so I could go in there and mess with the numbers a little bit. But here's that document embedded. And everything's clickable in there. Everything's fully functional inside of here. Open the original. So let me slow down and review a little bit. The main idea here is we think it's pretty cool to be able to embed things, but for students it's a lot more functional, particularly with what Kate's about to show you for using the read and write tools. It's a lot more functional to just add the link here. And she'll show you how read and write also works within Brightspace. But if you are adding something, it's already in Google, it's already in Word, wherever you have it outside. If you're adding it to Brightspace, then take advantage of the rich features that, how does read and write work in Google Docs? Significantly better than it works right inside the space in Brightspace. So absolutely, add links. That's how you make things easily accessible, right? Rather than embedding. Again, the two ways that we typically add things are to click, not add existing, sorry. Click Create New, and it's a web link if you just have a single web link. If you have multiple web links, then, well, the other thing you can do is you can paste multiple links in here. So let's see, take advantage of my Windows D. I've got a link there. Oops, that's not where I wanted to paste that. there's a link, and there's a link. Generally, we don't want to leave all these naked URLs here. So what we really want to do is add some text and then click and drag over that text. So this text should say, well, let's put what it really should say. Attendance link. Okay, that's what I really want there. And I'm going to click and drag over that. And actually, no, I'm sorry, there's an easier way to do this. I don't know why I'm showing you that. Right here, this icon, if I click here and scroll down, sorry, forgot about this, URL. So I can paste in the URL, and this remembers the recent URLs I've been to, and this would be a funny video. I don't remember if it's funny or not. I recorded it a while ago. There we go. So that's kind of the easiest way to add a URL where you're going to customize what it says here, so you don't have this big ugly URL, which screen readers hate these. I mean, this is useless on a screen reader. What is it you want me to click on? Well, I want you to click on HTTPS. That doesn't tell my student anything. They need to know what it is they're clicking on, and not just for screen readers. I mean, as a student, you know, I want to know what it is you want me to go to. So label it, URL. This is some document in SharePoint. That way I don't have to have just these in there. So if you have multiple URLs, multiple websites for them to go to, then we recommend you open the HTML document. And again, I have not messed with HTML at all. That's hiding in here. I don't need to look at that. I don't need to know what any of that means. I can just treat this like a regular document, which I can't type right. All right, want to make sure everything's showing. Can't save it without a title. Give it a title. Now I can save it. And there we go. Now I have a new HTML document titled title. Awesome. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin, and she is going to dive into read and write within Brightspace, as well as just some basics of read and write inside of the Chrome browser in general.
All right, so I'm going to talk about read and write and how it's compatible with Brightspace. First thing that we're going to talk about, though, before we get into that is the installation. So read and write should be force installed on all students' Chrome toolbars, and it should be force installed on all teacher toolbars. So before going to the Chrome store to download the extensions, go ahead and check your extension folder. It looks like a gray puzzle piece. And then within that drop-down, go ahead and look for the read and write icon, which looks like a purple puzzle piece. And then if you do not have the read and write extension in your Chrome toolbar, go ahead and go to the Chrome store. And once you're in the extensions, you're going to search for read and write. And then go ahead and click on it. And then you would add it to Chrome. And then there are two add-ons that I would also recommend that you add, and that is the screenshot reader. Looks like a little purple bird. So go ahead and add that one to your Chrome as well. And then the last one is the PDF reader, which now is called Orbit. So you're going to go ahead and click Orbit Doc and then add that to your Chrome toolbar as well. All right, so once you have all of those added, you're ready to use read and write. All right, so we're going to go over how to turn on read and write within Brightspace. So I'm going to pull up Brightspace, and we'll look at the 7th grade science demo course. So to pull read and write up, once you have it all pinned to your toolbar, you're going to go ahead and click on that purple puzzle piece. And then you'll notice the read and write toolbar comes up at the top of the page here. Okay, so on the course home, you can actually just use this main toolbar here. And you can use some tools like the text-to-speech, which is just the computer reading to you, some of the dictionaries and the highlighters. So I'll show how that works. So 3 different ways to use text-to-speech. You can highlight text and press play, and it's reading it to me now, and it highlights the sentence, one sentence at a time, and then it also has a second highlighter come in, and it highlights the word as it's reading it. So they're getting that visual of the word paired with the audio. Let me just refresh the page for a second here. Okay, so I'm pulling up my read and write again. Another tool that you can use to access text-to-speech is the hover speech tool. So you can go ahead and turn that on. And then wherever you put your cursor on the page, it's going to start reading. So I'm going to turn it off by clicking on that hover speech again. Last text-to-speech tool that you can use is the screenshot reader. And this will be helpful if you have text that's inaccessible that you're giving to your students, which just means that there's no text being recognized on the page and that it's being recognized as an image instead. So students can use the screenshot reader as a last resort, and what they'll do is they'll draw a box around the text that they want read to them. And then now it's going to be OCRing it, which means it's just scanning the image and searching for the text on it. And then it's playing it to me now. So you've got the play, pause, stop here, and then you also have a copy button. So it'll copy it to the clipboard, and then you could paste that text somewhere else. All right, so that's what it looks like on the course home. We're going to look at it within some content now. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of open something. All right, so we'll go to this ecosystem lesson here. And this page has been embedded, and I believe our suggestion is to not be embedding. We're actually recommending that you link. But I can show you how it does work if you do have things embedded. So I'm going to be clicking on the purple puzzle piece, and then you'll notice more puzzle pieces are coming up. So you want to click on the puzzle piece that's connected with the document or whatever format that you have embedded here. So you'll click on that, and then you'll notice the toolbar comes here. One of the reasons that we recommend that you link the tab is because it is hard to view some of this all at the same time. So opening it in a new tab would probably be the best. But you can certainly use all the text-to-speech tools that we just talked about to read. And then also some of these dictionary tools you can use as well. So maybe you're learning about ecosystems and you want to look up the definition of it. And you can actually press the play button and it will read it out loud to you. Or you can use the picture dictionary. I'll pull that up and it'll find, let me highlight the word first. It will find a picture for you. I'm going to go into another one. Okay, so again, I'm going to pull up the purple puzzle piece next to it, embedded. And some other tools that students might use are highlighters, so they can go through and highlight specific information maybe that they're looking for to support a claim or text evidence. They can use different highlighters if they like. And then they can collect all of the text that they've highlighted by using the Collect Highlights tool, which is just going to extract that information and pull it into a Google Doc for them. So I'm going to select OK, and then it will be creating a Google Doc with all of those highlights. So I can share that tab as it's loading. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to talking about how to use the read and write tools within more content within Brightspace. So I'm actually going to go to my own sandbox and show you how you would use these tools when you embed different things in your classroom like Google Docs and Google Slides and Jamboards, etc. I'm going to go to my content here. Scroll down. So the first format that we're going to look at is a Google Doc. So I have a Google Doc linked here to my class. I'm going to open that doc. Just waiting for it to load now. So when I click on that embedded link from Brightspace, it's directing me to a new tab with whatever I've linked to it. Oops, let's reload that. All right, and then I'm going to pull up the read and write tool by clicking on the purple puzzle piece in the Chrome toolbar. So you'll see now I have all of the tools with the read and write toolbar. So some of the tools that I'm going to demo in the Google Doc are the check it feature, which is a circle with a check mark, and that's just a more sensitive spelling grammar check. I'm going to demo the word prediction, which will predict the word that I'm typing based off of logically what I might say next, or predicts off of the first few letters that I've already typed, and the speech to text tool here. So first one we'll show is the check it tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what it's going to be doing is going through my document and finding any spelling or grammatical errors and flagging those with a purple underline. And so students can go through as a part of revision and check all of those mistakes, and it will give suggestions underneath. It will even pick up on things like capitalizing first letter in a sentence, and some other spelling errors that might not be able to be picked up with Google Docs. Another tool that your students can use is the word prediction tool. So go ahead and click on that tool in the toolbar, which is right next to the check it feature tool. It looks like a crystal ball with some sparkles next to it. And so how this works is students will be typing a sentence and it will guess what word they're typing. So I'm writing about my summer vacation. Just need to put the first few letters there and then it will predict, and I can go ahead and click on it. Make sure you don't click on it twice. It also will predict the next word ahead. And then the last tool that I'm going to show to support written expression is the speech to text, which is called talk and type within read and write. So what your students will do is they'll select the microphone tool. I'm going to make sure you hit allow. And then when the microphone is red, it's listening, and when the microphone is gray, it's off. This paper is all about my summer vacation at Lake George, period. So students can use the dictation tool to dictate whole sentences or even just single words so that they're not limited with only the words that they can spell, and they can use some more sophisticated word choices. All right, so moving right along, I'm going to show how some of these tools work within Google Slides and then websites and PDFs. I'm going to go to a Google slide now. So again, I have the slides linked directly to my class here, and I'm going to open that in a new tab. I have my students making a copy of the slide. Okay, and then once my slides are finished loading, I'm going to pull up the read and write toolbar by, again, clicking on that purple puzzle piece in my Chrome toolbar. Okay, so you'll see all of my tools are up here. Some things to note when you're creating slides for your students, sometimes less is actually more, because the more text and diagrams that you have on a slide can make it even more cluttered and visually difficult for students to access with vision difficulties or maybe attention difficulties. So just sticking with a nice clean background and text and making sure that it's not too cluttered will help everybody with better accessing it. So you can use all the tools that we've reviewed so far. So you can use things like text-to-speech. Okay. You can use things like speech to text. So if I click on the talk and type, whatever I say is going to go into the speaker notes below. Just one thing to note is that students cannot use the talk and type directly into text boxes on their Google Slides. So testing speech to text within Google Docs. Okay, so you'll see my message has been transcribed into the speaker notes below. Students can use the word prediction within text boxes. So I'll just turn the word prediction on, and then you'll see sometimes it comes up over in the corner, so it's not going to follow students as they write, but they can access the word prediction. And then the last thing that I wanted to go over in slides was we use a lot of diagrams in slides, and just note that this is going to be recognized as a picture and not text. So that's a time where students are going to need to use their screenshot reader in order to read some of that text. So I'll show that now. So I'm going to just select the screenshot reader, highlight the inaccessible text, and then wait for it to be recognized using the screenshot. So you want to check it too, because it can sometimes it's not always accurate. So you've got the play, pause, stop, and you've also got a copy button. So what I recommend is if you do know that you have inaccessible text on a diagram, one, have your students zoom all the way in on the text before they use the screenshot reader. And then two, go ahead and copy what is in the text box below and fix any errors that come up when it's OCR'd. Okay. So now we're going to move on to a website linked within Brightspace. So I have my website here. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And I'll show some of the tools that you can use when you're working on websites with your students. So again, I'm going to go to the toolbar and pull up my purple puzzle piece. And then I have all of those tools that we just spoke about. Now within websites, you're going to be using things like text-to-speech. Maybe you'll be using the play, pause, stop, or maybe you'll be using the hover button.
In this activity, students will learn about sea ice and land ice.
Okay, and then what's really nice and customizable on websites is the Simplify tool. So it allows students to adjust the color of the text, or sorry, the background of the website, the size of the text, the spacing, and also simplify information. So when I click on the Simplify button, it takes everything from the website we were just looking at, and it gets rid of all of the ads or any visual clutter that might have been coming up on the sides of the website there. And then from here, I can change things like spacing and change the font, make it larger, smaller. I can even change the font if I want it to be open dyslexic. And then also the text and background. So I could make it be black with white text, or if I really needed a big contrast, the blue with the yellow. And then the Simplify tool here will take the information and summarize it even more. So maybe if I'm doing a cold read, I don't need to know every single detail yet. I might simplify it a little bit, which also can help to differentiate it by students' reading abilities. So maybe you want to have some kids in your class hit that Simplify tool a few times for the first few reads. Then the last tool here is Discover. So within websites, it'll find key information, and students can hover over the words that are underlined in purple, and it will give them a nice little pop-up where they don't need to open a new tab, where they can find out more information about that key concept. So let's take a look at this here. Right, so let's take a look at glaciers. So when I click on that, here's my pop-up. That's giving me some more background information. Maybe I don't know too much about glaciers and I want to have some more information to better understand this article. Okay, so that is the Simplify tool within websites. And then the last one that we'll talk about is PDFs, and we'll wrap up with the UDL concept. So let me go back to my Brightspace class, and I'm going to click on my PDF here and open the link in a new tab. So when you have the PDF, or actually it's called Orbit now, installed, what you're going to do is select Open With and Read and Write for Google Chrome. And this will open the PDF with all of the read and write toolbars at the top. So make sure you accept permissions. This is the first time I've used this one, so since they've updated it to Orbit. So okay, so I have my PDF here, and then I have all of those tools from Read and Write. Note they do look a little bit different, but I can still use things like the play button to read text.
Cut out the cards.
Okay.
A teacher.
I also have a hover speech button or click to speak. So wherever I click, it's going to read. And then I have the ability to type directly on the PDF, and then the ability to annotate directly on the PDF. So I can use a text box, and wherever I click, the text box will appear, and I can go ahead and use the tools like text speech within my text box. I can use speech to text to dictate, word prediction if I need support with spelling. And I also have the abilities to change the font size and the color. Students do have all of the highlighter tools that we had in the previous formats. They do have the collect highlights tool, so they can collect all those highlights into a Google Doc. They have some draw tools within PDFs, so students can actually draw directly on the PDF. And then also using the pins to make annotations. So wherever they click, they'll have a little push pin where they can put some notes. And then when they get to that part, they can go ahead and click on their push pin to open it back up. What's really nice about the PDFs is that it makes it completely accessible. We have things like this screen mask, so students can focus on specific parts of it. We have that on the websites as well. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is UDL. So kind of why it is important that we're using all of these tools. So just a little background, universal design for learning is based off of the principle that the way that each person learns is very unique. It's actually as unique as your fingerprint. So our curriculum, the way that we're presenting it and the way that we're assessing knowledge really needs to be from the start, considering that each person learns differently. They bring their own background, they bring their own interests. So we're planning for that learner variability from the start, and we're planning for it, and we're providing flexible goals and materials and assessments to remove some of those learning barriers that we anticipate. So why is UDL important? So we're front-loading supports for all students. So that's going to help with accelerating student progress and narrowing those gaps, and hopefully we'll see increased test scores, reducing or eliminating time spent reteaching. So because everybody can access and participate in the assignments from the start, we're not having to go back. We're benefiting more than just the targeted student, and with that, reducing the negative stigma around only special education students needing certain tools. And then the most important one is students taking ownership of their own learning. So supports students' development to become expert learners, which is our end goal, that they'll know how they learn best, they'll want to learn, and be well prepared for a lifetime of learning. So who is it for? So while it's essential for students with disabilities, the tools actually optimize teaching and learning for all students. So essential for some, but good for everybody. So who's it for? It's for everybody. All right, so we're going to get into a few examples to kind of demonstrate how these tools are really essential for some students, but they are also good for everyone. So the first example here is text-to-speech, and this is going to be essential for students with reading disabilities or students that maybe have low vision or are an English language learner, or even maybe just students that fatigue easily. But at the same time, this method of perceiving information might actually be preferred by students with strong auditory processing skills. And just a reminder that text-to-speech is an instruction and accessibility feature for all students in science, social studies, and math. So you want to make sure that you're modeling this use of the tool for all students frequently during instruction. Second example is speech to text. So this provides an alternative modality, and this might be really essential for students with dyslexia that really struggle when having to express a story in writing, but do very well when expressing a story in conversation. But at the same time, providing this option to construct and compose in this way provides a way for everybody to more easily express their knowledge and ideas and their concepts. And then the last one here is varying the display of information. So that's kind of what we were looking at on the websites. So this is going to be really essential for students with low vision, or like we said, maybe students with attention difficulties that require reduced clutter or distractions of the content. But at the same time, it's providing everybody a better way, a more flexible way to understand the language and the vocabulary associated with the task. Okay, and then I think that we are just about at time here. So we're not going to get to go over the rest of this. But if you do need more help or some more resources, we're going to be linking the UDL website as well as the Read and Write website with our presentation.